My name is Sophia Jack, and I'm 29 years old. I started my tech company in a cramped dorm room, while everyone around me told me to be realistic. Today, standing at my graduation with my family watching, my father sent me a message that shattered my heart. But what happened moments later changed everything. 4 years of sleepless nights, rejection, and sacrifice had led to this exact moment, when my phone buzzed twice within minutes. The first text crushed me. The second made history. And if you're watching this right now, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to follow this journey of turning rejection into the sweetest success story you've ever heard. Growing up as the only daughter in the Jack household, with 2 older brothers, meant constantly being overlooked. My father, Harold Jack, had built his construction supply company from the ground up in the 1980s. He was a proud, self-made man who valued hard work and tradition. But in our family, tradition meant one thing: business was for men. Women belonged in supporting roles. From as far back as I can remember, I watched my father prepare my brothers, Daniel and Thomas, to one day take over Jack Building Supply. He'd bring them to the office on weekends, teaching them about profit margins, inventory, and leadership. When I asked to come along at age 8, he chuckled, patted my head, and said, "This is boring stuff, princess. Why don't you help your mom with dinner instead?" My mother, Elizabeth, was the perfect corporate wife. She hosted business dinners, kept our home flawless, and never contradicted my father in public. In private, she'd whisper encouragement to me, but always followed it with, "Just don't let your father hear about it." I know she loved me, but she had accepted her role in life and expected me to do the same. Still, I showed a natural talent for math and computer science early on. In 3rd grade, I won a state math competition against students 2 grades ahead of me. My father came to the ceremony, but afterward, all he said was that it was cute how I liked playing with numbers. When my teacher suggested advanced classes and mentoring, my father politely thanked her but never mentioned it again. By high school, I had taught myself coding through online tutorials and even built a scheduling app that the school ended up using to manage activities. A local newspaper wrote a small story about it. My father glanced at the article and muttered, "Computers are just a phase. Real business happens face to face." At 16, my brothers were gifted new cars. I got a laptop, deemed practical for schoolwork. He had no idea that laptop would become the seed of my company, Secure Connect, a platform specializing in encrypted communication software for businesses. When college application season came around, I secretly applied to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. My guidance counselor helped me, believing in me when my parents didn't. When I got my acceptance letter, my mother was thrilled but nervous about how my father would react. "What are you going to do at MIT?" My father scoffed at dinner. "Waste 4 years when you could be getting real experience? Technology is smoke and mirrors. Look at all these tech businesses failing. It's the top engineering school in the country," I whispered. "Engineering is not for girls, Sophia. You'll struggle, get discouraged, and drop out." "Then what?" "I won't drop out," I promised. After weeks of arguing, he reluctantly agreed to pay for my first year, on strict conditions. I had to maintain a 4.0 GPA, work part-time to cover personal expenses, and call home weekly with updates. "1 year," he said. "Then we'll see if this is just a waste of my money." The night before I left for Cambridge, my mom sat on the edge of my bed. "Your father means well," she said softly. "He just wants to protect you from disappointment. He doesn't believe in me," I replied, folding my clothes into my suitcase. "He doesn't understand you," she corrected. "Maybe one day, you'll show him." "I will," I vowed, zipping my suitcase shut. "I'll prove it." The next morning, as I boarded the plane to Boston, my father's final words echoed in my mind: "When this tech fantasy fails, there'll always be a receptionist position waiting at Jack Building Supply." I stared out the window as my hometown shrank below me and made a silent vow. I would never be answering phones at my father's company. I would build something of my own, something so successful he could never dismiss it. I didn't realize then how much that promise would transform my life. MIT was everything I hoped for, and tougher than I imagined. Orientation week surrounded me with some of the brightest minds from all over the world. For the first time, no one questioned whether I belonged in tech because I was a girl. The only question was whether I could keep up. The workload was brutal. I juggled a full load of computer science and business classes while working 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore, keeping my promise to my father. My roommate, Natalie Kim, rarely saw me awake. I'd drag myself back from work at 9 p.m., study until 2 a.m., catch 4 hours of sleep, and do it all over again. "You're going to burn out," Natalie warned one night after finding me asleep. On my keyboard, "I can't slow down," I mumbled, splashing cold water on my face. "My dad's only paying for 1 year. After that, I need scholarships, or I'm out. By midterms, I was exhausted, but excelling. I earned the highest grade in my algorithms class, catching the attention of Professor Alan Blackwell, who would later become my greatest mentor. Jack, he called out after class one day, that encryption solution you proposed, have you considered its commercial applications? I hadn't. I was too busy trying to survive. But Professor Blackwell saw something in me that I had completely overlooked. The financial world would pay a premium for that kind of security. My professor leaned back in his chair and said, "Come to my office hours. Let's talk more." That single invitation changed everything for me. During those meetings, Professor Blackwell helped sharpen my encryption algorithm and introduced me to graduate students tackling similar challenges. For the first time, I began thinking beyond grades and mere survival. By second semester, I had formed a small circle of like-minded students. There was Zach Torres, a coding genius with a background in quantum computing. Diana Chen, whose intuition for user experience design was unmatched. And Marcus Washington, a natural strategist whose business instincts complemented my technical skills. Every Sunday afternoon, we gathered in my dorm room. Out of those sessions, Secure Connect was born. Our vision was simple yet powerful, an encryption system for business communication that was not only unbreakable but also easy to use. Most security tools sacrificed usability for protection. I told the group, we can build something that does both. Meanwhile, my father called every Sunday evening, just as we had agreed. The conversations followed the same script. "How are your grades?" he'd ask. "All A's so far," I'd reply. Then came questions about part-time work and summer hours. I never told him about our project. I already knew what he would say, that it was just another fantasy. By April of freshman year, we had a working prototype. Professor Blackwell urged us to enter the university's annual business competition, which awarded $50,000 in seed funding. "We're not ready," I protested. "You're more ready than you think," he replied. "The judges need to see this." The night before the competition, I called my mom instead of my dad. "I might have a chance to win some money tomorrow," I said carefully. "For a business idea." "That's wonderful, honey," she answered. "What kind of business?" I explained our software as simply as I could. When I finished, she said gently, "Your father always says business is about solving problems. And it sounds like you're solving an important one. Do you think he would be proud?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. She paused. "I think he'd be surprised. But someday, yes. And I already am." The next day, we won first place and the $50,000 prize. The university even published a press release with our team photo, holding an oversized check. I sent the link to my parents. Hours later, my father finally replied, "Playing entrepreneur. On the university's dime, I see. Focus on your grades." That summer, I stayed in Cambridge to work on Secure Connect. The prize money allowed us to rent a tiny office and pay ourselves modest stipends. I called my father to tell him I wouldn't need financial support for sophomore year. "So, you're dropping out?" he asked, almost pleased. "No. I earned a scholarship. I'll continue my studies while building the company." He fell silent. For a long moment. "Businesses need customers, Sophia. They need revenue. Who's buying your program?" I had no answer yet. "We had no clients, no revenue." "That's what I thought," he said finally. "Well, good luck. At least you're not wasting my money anymore." During sophomore year, I cut my course load and poured everything into Secure Connect. We worked 18-hour days refining our product and pitching to clients, only to face rejection after rejection. "No one trusts college students with security," Marcus muttered after our 15th failed meeting. "Then we stop looking like students," I decided. We rebranded, built professional materials, and rehearsed our pitch until it was second nature. Finally, a small financial advisory firm took a chance on us. When the first $10,000 payment hit our account, I treated the team to pizza. I thought about calling my dad, but held back. I wanted undeniable proof before facing his doubts again. That one client led to 5 more, and soon a dozen. By the end of sophomore year, we were generating enough revenue to hire developers and move into a real office. I was no longer just a student, I was a CEO, but success brought new challenges. The summer after sophomore year, one of our financial clients suffered a breach. It wasn't caused by our software, they had ignored our installation instructions. But publicly, they blamed us, branding us inexperienced and threatening legal action. "We can't survive a lawsuit," Marcus warned in an emergency meeting. "We've only got 3 months of runway." I hadn't slept in 2 days, scrambling to help the client recover while protecting our reputation. "We need a lawyer," I said. "And money to pay for one, which means investors." Until then, we had bootstrapped using prize money and revenue. But legal trouble would sink us fast. I spent the next 2 weeks pitching every venture capital firm in Boston. The feedback was brutally consistent. Your tech looks promising, but your team lacks experience. Come back when you have a seasoned CEO. Maybe bring on a male co-founder, it'll help with credibility. After one especially crushing rejection, I sat alone on a park bench and dialed my mom, something I rarely did when feeling vulnerable. Maybe Dad was right, I admitted quietly. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Her voice was firm. Your father has been wrong about many things. Don't make him right by giving up. The next day, I had a pitch meeting with Elena Bailey of Artemis Ventures, one of the few female-led VC firms in Boston. I arrived exhausted and discouraged, bracing for yet another rejection. Elena listened to my pitch without interrupting, asked sharp technical questions that showed she actually understood our product, and then leaned forward. You remind me of myself 20 years ago, she said, brilliant, determined, and completely underestimated. I'm going to invest $500,000 for 10% of your company, and I'll connect you with the best tech lawyer in my network. Relief nearly brought me to tears. But then she continued, you need to promise me something. When you succeed, and you will succeed, you'll remember what it feels like to be dismissed because of your age and gender. And you'll help the next young woman who comes to you with a brilliant idea. I promise, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. With Elena's investment, we survived the legal threat, settling with the client for a fraction of their initial demand. The experience taught us to be more careful with client onboarding and to document everything meticulously. It also showed me how transformative the right investor could be. Elena became more than a financial backer, she became a mentor and advocate. She introduced us to potential clients, helped refine our business model, and coached me on leadership. By the end of junior year, Secure Connect had 15 employees working out of a converted warehouse in Kendall Square. We were generating steady revenue, though still far from profitable after covering salaries, rent, and development costs. Each new hire brought excitement but also anxiety. These people were trusting their livelihoods to my vision. What if I failed them? What if my father was right about me all along? The pressure took a toll. I developed insomnia, stress-induced migraines, and lost 15 pounds without trying. My academic advisor eventually called me into her office, concerned about my slipping grades. You need to make a choice, she said gently. Your company. Or your degree. You can't keep doing both at this pace. I chose the company, but negotiated to stay enrolled part-time. Graduation would take longer, but I refused to be a dropout. That would give my father the satisfaction of being right. Our breakthrough came in the fall of senior year. Our team developed a major innovation in our encryption algorithm, making it both more secure and more efficient. When we announced the update, our client base expanded overnight from regional firms to national enterprises. Monthly revenue tripled in 60 days. We hired quickly to keep up, moving to a larger office and bringing in seasoned professionals who commanded salaries we could barely afford. It was a calculated risk, we needed their expertise to scale. One of those hires was Jennifer Lawrence, a veteran CFO who had guided 2 startups to acquisition. At 52, she was 24 years older than me, and brought a steadying presence to our young company. You have something special here, she told me in her first week. But you're growing too fast without proper financial controls. Let me help. You build a sustainable business, not just an impressive technology. Under Jennifer's guidance, we restructured our pricing, improved cash flow, and began serious talks about long-term growth strategy. For the first time, I had a leadership team that wasn't just my college friends. When we landed our first Fortune 500 client, a major financial services firm, I finally called my father with news I thought would impress him. Dad, Secure Connect just signed a 7-figure contract with Allied Financial, I said, my voice brimming with pride. There was a pause. That's a significant client, he admitted. But tech companies come and go, Sophia. How sustainable is this business of yours? Are you profitable? We weren't yet. We reinvested every dollar into growth. When I didn't answer immediately, he said, I thought so. Be careful not to let this distract you from finishing your degree. You'll need something to fall back on when this tech bubble bursts. I hung up, deflated. Would anything ever be enough for him to believe in me? That night, I stayed late reviewing projections with Jennifer. Your father still doesn't get it, does he? She asked. I hadn't realized she'd overheard my call. He never will, I sighed. My father was the same, she said quietly. He thought women belonged in teaching or nursing. He never came to see my corner office at Goldman Sachs. How did you deal with that? I asked, she smiled. I stopped seeking his approval and started seeking his respect. Those are different things. You may never get the first, but you can demand the second. I took her words to heart. I would stop chasing my father's pride. Instead, I'd build something so undeniable that respect would be the only option. The next 18 months were a whirlwind of growth and challenges. Secure Connect expanded from 40 employees to over 120, outgrowing our offices twice. We moved into a gleaming glass building in downtown Boston, our logo emblazoned on the doors. Every morning, walking into that building filled me with equal parts pride and fear. So many people depended on my leadership. So many things could still go wrong. Jennifer proved not only to be a skilled CFO but also an invaluable mentor. She had navigated the waters I was just entering and knew every hidden reef. You need to raise a proper Series A round, she urged, as our cash reserves dwindled despite soaring revenue. We need capital to sustain this growth. The idea of pitching investors again triggered memories of rejection. But Secure Connect was different now. We had strong clients, proven technology, and real revenue. Elena from Artemis Ventures led our Series A, bringing in several larger firms as co-investors. We raised $12 million at a $60 million valuation, the tech press noticed. TechCrunch ran a feature titled Secure Connect, the female-founded security startup taking enterprise by storm. My mother sent me the article with a simple message: "So proud of you, honey." My father never called, but my brother Daniel told me he had seen it. He asked if your company was really worth that much or if it was just investor hype. Daniel said, "What did you tell him?" I asked. I told him to read the article and decide for himself. For what it's worth, I think what you're doing is incredible. Tom does too, even if he'd never admit it to Dad. My brothers and I had grown distant as adults. Both had joined Jack Building Supply after college, taking the easy path. Sometimes I wondered if they resented my rebellion, or envied my freedom. With our Series A secured, we expanded aggressively into new markets. The personal cost was immense. I hadn't taken a single vacation in 3 years. Most nights, my meals were takeout, eaten hunched over my desk. My relationship had ended after just 6 months because I could only spare one night a week. You need to delegate more, Jennifer urged, after finding me asleep at my desk at 2 in the morning. This company cannot depend solely on you. I'm fine, I insisted, though the dark circles under my eyes told another story. You're killing yourself, she pressed. And that helps no one. Build a leadership team you trust. Let them carry some of the weight. Reluctantly, I began delegating. I hired a chief technology officer to lead engineering and a chief operating officer to handle daily operations. Giving up control was harder than I expected, but it was necessary, for both my health and the company's future. As Secure Connect gained visibility, competitors started circling. Bigger security firms developed rival products. Some tried to lure away our best engineers with double salaries. Others whispered that our technology wasn't reliable. This is actually a good sign, Elena reassured me during one of our advisor meetings. They wouldn't bother if you weren't a threat. But one competitor crossed the line, attempting to hack into our systems to steal proprietary code. The irony of a security company being attacked wasn't lost on me. Thankfully, our defenses held. We traced the attack and shut it down with a cease and desist letter. Through it all, I still clung to my part-time student status at MIT, determined to finish my degree. By my 5th year, I was taking only 1 or 2 classes each semester. My father had stopped asking about school long ago, assuming I had dropped out. Then, in the spring of that 5th year, my advisor called me in. "You have enough credits to graduate this May," she told me, reviewing my transcript. "Really?" I blinked in disbelief. I'd been so focused on just surviving each course, I'd lost track. "Really? You'll graduate with honors, despite your unconventional path." She smiled. "The commencement committee has even discussed you." "Me? Why?" "They're considering you for the student commencement speech. Building a multimillion-dollar company while completing your degree? Your story is remarkable, Sophia." I was stunned. "I'm not sure I have time to write a speech." "Think about it," she urged. "It could inspire a generation of young entrepreneurs." That evening, I called my mother. "I'm graduating in May," I told her. "With honors." "Oh, Sophia," she gasped, joy filling her voice. "We'll all be there. Your father too." "He doesn't have to come," I said quickly. "He's your father." "Of course he'll come." Her tone left no room for debate. The thought of my father at my graduation stirred conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted him to see my success, to finally admit he'd been wrong. Another part dreaded his inevitable dismissal of everything I had achieved. Meanwhile, Secure Connect faced its biggest crossroads. Several large tech companies had approached us with acquisition offers, numbers so high they hardly seemed real. At the same time, our board debated going public. "The IPO market is strong right now," Jennifer explained during a late-night strategy session. "With our growth and client base, we could command a major valuation. But are we ready?" I asked. We'll need our financials perfect and some heavy-hitting names on the board, she admitted. But yes, I believe we are. The timing was surreal. Our IPO prep aligned almost exactly with my graduation. Two climaxes arriving together. We moved forward with the IPO process, working with investment banks on our S-1 filing. The weeks blurred with meetings, lawyers, auditors, bankers. The week before graduation, we made the confidential filing. Only the executive team and board knew. I declined the chance to give the commencement speech. I simply didn't have the time. Instead, I would graduate quietly, just another student in a cap and gown, even if I was also running a company worth hundreds of millions. My family flew in the day before the ceremony. It would be the first time I'd seen my father in 2 years. I booked them at the Four Seasons, my small, silent way of showing how far I'd come from the freshman he'd reluctantly supported. The night before graduation, Jennifer called with news that made me breathless. The bankers think we should price the IPO higher than expected, she said, her excitement palpable. The demand is incredible. We're looking at $1 billion valuation on day one. $1 billion. The number felt unreal. When will we know for sure? I asked. The final pricing happens tomorrow morning. I'll call as soon as it's confirmed. Tomorrow morning. Graduation morning. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. We've landed. See you tomorrow at the ceremony. We're all so proud. I wondered if all truly included my father. The morning of graduation dawned under a flawless May sky. I woke at 5:30, too restless to sleep. My modest one-bedroom apartment, so often just a crash pad, was only a short walk from campus. I checked my phone immediately. No word from Jennifer yet. But there was a notification from the SEC portal, just minor comments, nothing that would slow us down. I showered, dressed, and tried to focus on the ceremony. Today was supposed to be about celebrating my degree, the one I had fought for despite my father's doubts and the demands of building a company. I chose a simple black dress beneath my gown. Professional, not flashy. My cap and gown hung on the door, tassel swaying slightly. After 5 years of part-time study and relentless work, seeing them there felt surreal. At 7:20, my phone rang. Jennifer, we have a preliminary price, she said immediately. The underwriters are recommending $42 a share. I did the math quickly. Just over $1 billion valuation, a unicorn IPO, she confirmed. It's rare, Sophia. Really rare. My hands trembled. When will it be final? The pricing committee meets in an hour. We'll have confirmation by 9:30. The announcement goes out after that. My graduation started at 10. I'll be in the middle of the ceremony, I said. I'll call you when it's official. Will your phone be on? Yes, I whispered, heart pounding. I'll keep it on vibrate. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to absorb what this meant. $1 billion valuation, everything would change. It would validate years of sacrifice, nights spent sleeping on my office couch, doubts I had fought through, and the endless grind no one saw. It would also silence my father's old dismissal of me, playing entrepreneur. But I pushed that thought away. I no longer made decisions to prove him wrong. Secure Connect was about building something that mattered, protecting people's data and privacy. The valuation was a byproduct, never the purpose. At 8:30, I left for campus to meet my family at the gathering spot for graduates and their guests. The walk steadied me, MIT's familiar paths grounding me in everything that led here. I saw my mother first, elegant in a blue dress and jacket. Beside her stood my brothers, Daniel and Thomas, both in suits, and then my father, stern, rigid in his tailored suit, his hair more gray than brown now. My mother rushed toward me, arms wide. Her embrace was tight, real. We are so proud of you, honey. My brothers offered quick hugs and congratulations. Then came my father. I froze, unsure of how to greet him after so much distance. He extended his hand, formal as ever. Congratulations on completing your degree, Sophia. Not a hug. Not, I'm proud of you. Just acknowledgement of a task finished. I shook his hand, disappointment tightening my chest. Thank you for coming, I said. He replied, your mother insisted. As though I might have doubted his presence. We made small talk, awkward compared to the joy spilling from other families nearby. My mother filled the silence with questions about the ceremony and lunch afterward. I made reservations at Harvest, I said, naming one of Cambridge's finest restaurants. My father raised an eyebrow. Business must be going well. It is, I answered, keeping it at that. The IPO news would speak for itself soon enough. An announcement called graduates to line up by school. I have to go, I told them. Your seats are in section C. I'll see you after. My mother hugged me again. We'll be watching for you. As I walked away, I heard my father murmur to my brothers, at least she finished the degree. She'll need it when this tech bubble bursts. Some things never changed. I joined the engineering graduates, adjusting my cap, checking that my phone was on vibrate in the pocket I had sewn into my dress for today. Around me, classmates snapped selfies, laughed, and cheered. I stood apart. My mind split between the ceremony and the IPO pricing unfolding across town. At 9:45, the procession began into the grand auditorium. From my place in line, I spotted Section C, my mother's blue dress, my father's stiff posture beside her. At 9:52, my phone buzzed. Jennifer. I stepped aside to glance at the message. Pricing confirmed at $44 per share. Final valuation, $1.1 billion. Press release in 15 minutes. Congratulations, Sophia. You did it. My knees went weak. My company had officially crossed into unicorn territory, the dream so many chased but few caught. And now, my father was about to find out. I slipped back into line, moving on autopilot. The ceremony opened with speeches about achievement and the future, words I barely heard as my thoughts spun. At 10:15, another vibration, Jennifer again. The press release was live. Within minutes, news channels would break the story. Secure Connect's billion-dollar IPO, founded by a woman. Soon, very soon, my father would know. As I waited for my name, my phone buzzed nonstop with congratulations from employees, investors, and mentors. I ignored them, focusing on keeping steady. Then, at 10:32, a different message, this time from my father. My hands trembled as I opened it. Do not expect any help from me going forward. You are on your own. The words hit like a punch. On this day, my graduation, my billion-dollar IPO, he still chose rejection. Tears threatened, but I refused to let them fall. Not now. Not for him. They called my name, Sophia Marie Jack, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Engineering. With honors. I rose on unsteady legs, crossed the stage, shook the dean's hand, and forced a smile for the camera. Inside, I was breaking. As I stepped down, my phone buzzed again. Jennifer. I turned slightly away, whispering, hello. Her voice sparkled with joy. Sophia, the stock is already trading up in the private placement. The IPO was a massive success. We had just crossed a $1 billion market cap. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. CNBC wanted an interview, and Bloomberg had already reached out. I was still close enough to the stage that her excited voice carried across the crowd. Several people turned to look, including faculty members. That's incredible news, I said, louder than I intended. $1 billion IPO. Hard to believe. More heads turned, and a murmur rippled through the graduates nearby. We need to schedule a press conference, Jennifer continued, unaware of my surroundings. As the CEO of a newly public company worth over $1 billion, you'll need to address the media and investors. I understand, I replied, still speaking loudly enough for those around me to hear. I'll head to the office as soon as the graduation ceremony ends. When I ended the call, I noticed dozens of eyes on me. The whispers spread quickly. $1 billion IPO. CEO. I turned toward the family seating area and met my father's stare. His expression was frozen somewhere between shock and disbelief. In his hand, he held his phone. He must have just seen the news alert about Secure Connect's IPO. The timing could not have been more poetic. Minutes after texting me that I was on my own, he discovered that his so-called helpless daughter had just become the CEO of a company worth over $1 billion. Our eyes locked. Across the auditorium. For the first time in my life, I saw something new in his gaze. Not love. Not pride. Respect. The rest of the graduation blurred past me. I sat among classmates who now looked at me with curiosity, whispering questions I pretended not to hear. The university president gave his closing remarks, but few were listening. The buzz about the student CEO with the $1 billion IPO had taken over the room. As we filed out after the recessional, professors stopped to congratulate me. Several mentioned they'd just seen the news on their phones. Professor Blackwell, my earliest supporter, gave me a knowing smile and a thumbs up from across the crowd. Outside, graduates scattered to find their families. I spotted my mother first, waving excitedly, with my brother standing beside her, half impressed, half uncomfortable. My father lingered a step apart, still clutching his phone. Unreadable. Your company is all over the news, my mother, Sophia, exclaimed, hugging me tightly. Why didn't you tell us? The timing was confidential until this morning. I explained. We couldn't disclose IPO details before the official announcement. My brothers offered stiff congratulations, clearly unsure how to react to their younger sister's sudden success. Daniel mentioned the stock price already climbing in early trading. Thomas asked if I was now a billionaire. The company is valued at over $1 billion, I clarified. My stake is large, but not a majority. On paper, yes, I'm now worth tens of millions. Through it all, my father stayed silent, his face hard. Finally, he stepped forward. You kept this from us deliberately. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. The SEC has strict rules about disclosure, I answered evenly. And honestly, would you have believed me if I told you? Your text came through just before they called my name. I held up my phone. Don't expect any help from me going forward. You said it yourself, I'm on my own. Interesting timing, Dad. My mother gasped. Harold, you didn't. His face flushed. I was simply acknowledging her independence. She's made it clear she doesn't need family support. That's not what you meant, and we both know it, I replied, my voice calm and steady, surprising even myself. You've never believed in me, or in what I was building. You've been waiting for me to fail since the day I left for MIT. Nearby families had stopped to watch, phones raised to record the confrontation between the fresh graduate turned tech CEO and her father. This isn't the place for this discussion, my father said stiffly, finally noticing the attention. I agree, I said. Let's go to the restaurant. I reserved a private room. As we crossed campus, my phone buzzed nonstop. Jennifer texted, our stock was trading at $52 a share, well above our IPO price. The market was responding better than we ever dreamed. At the restaurant, the staff recognized me immediately. Congratulations on your IPO, Miss Jack, the host said, leading us to the private dining room. Your office sent over champagne. A chilled bottle of Dominion waited on ice, with a handwritten note from my executive team. Once we were seated and the door closed, my father spoke first. So this is why you've been so secretive. Planning your big reveal for maximum effect. I've been building a real business for 5 years, I said firmly. The IPO isn't the finish line, it's just another milestone. A technology business, he scoffed. Built on venture capital and hype. No, I corrected. Built on solving real security problems for major corporations. We have over 200 enterprise clients, including 40 Fortune 500 companies. Our encryption technology is the most advanced in the industry. And you did all this while supposedly finishing your degree. There was nothing supposed about it, I said, placing my diploma on the table. I finished what I started, despite your predictions of failure. My mother gently rested her hand on my father's arm. Harold, our daughter has accomplished something extraordinary. Can you not simply be proud of her? He shrugged off her hand. Extraordinary? We'll see if this company even exists. In 5 years. Most tech startups crash and burn after the IPO. To my surprise, Daniel spoke up. Dad, Secure Connect isn't some fly-by-night operation. They're the leader in their field. I checked them out after seeing Sophia featured in TechCrunch last year. Their client list is impressive. My father turned toward him, betrayal flashing in his eyes. You knew about this? I knew they were successful, Daniel admitted. But I didn't know about the IPO. My phone buzzed. Jennifer again. I excused myself and answered in the corner, Sophia, I hate to interrupt your graduation, but CNBC has your interview at 3 o'clock. We need you at the office by 2 to prepare. I'll be there, I promised before ending the call. Returning to the table, I said, I'm sorry, but I need to cut this short. I have media obligations this afternoon. More important than your family lunch, my father demanded. As important as your work obligations have always been, I replied evenly. As CEO of a public company, I have responsibilities to shareholders, employees, and clients. Harold, my mother said softly. Perhaps we can reschedule dinner. This evening, after Sophia's commitments. I shook my head. I'll be in meetings and interviews all day, likely late into the night. The first day of trading is critical. Of course it is, my father said sarcastically. Your little computer program is more important than family. Something inside me snapped. 5 years of dismissal, doubt, and derision crystallized into perfect clarity. My little computer program, as you call it, just created over $1 billion in value, I said, my voice steady. It employs over 150 people who depend on me for their livelihoods. It protects the sensitive data of millions of users worldwide. I stood, gathering my things. I achieved all of this while you told me I would fail. While you bet against me at every turn. While you groomed my brothers for your business, telling me the best I could hope for was answering phones. The room fell silent. I didn't build Secure Connect to prove you wrong, Dad. I built it because I believed in it. But your text today, saying I was on my own as I walked across that stage, made one thing clear. I looked him directly in the eyes. I've been on my own since the day I left for MIT. And look at what I've accomplished without your support. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My brothers looked stunned. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. For once, Harold Jack had no response. I need to go, I said more gently. Jennifer has a car waiting to take me to the office. Sophia, my mother began. It's okay, Mom, I reassured her. We'll have dinner tomorrow. You and the boys are welcome to visit the office if you'd like a tour. I didn't include my father in the invitation, his face hardened, pride replacing shock. I have an early flight. Business requires my attention back home. It always does, I replied. As I turned to leave, his voice stopped me. Sophia. I looked back. Congratulations on your IPO, he said, the words strained. It's impressive. Not I'm proud of you. Not I was wrong. Just an acknowledgement of the undeniable, thank you, I said. That may be the first genuine compliment you've ever given me. I walked out to find a black town car waiting. Jennifer stood beside it, her face lighting up. There she is, the woman of the hour. She hugged me tightly. We're up 60% from the IPO price. The market loves us. Sliding into the car, I glanced back at the restaurant. My father stood outside, watching. His expression was unreadable. Our eyes met briefly before the car pulled away. I had imagined this moment for years, the day my father would finally have to acknowledge my success. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I felt something entirely different. Freedom. Freedom from needing his approval. Freedom meant no longer shaping myself around his expectations. I was Sophia Jack, CEO of Secure Connect, a publicly traded company worth over $1 billion. That identity was mine alone, no longer tethered to my father's opinion. As the car carried me toward our headquarters, where champagne and celebration waited, I glanced at the graduation cap resting on the seat beside me. 2 milestones achieved in one day. One chapter closed, another just beginning. My phone buzzed. A message from Elena, my first investor. You proved them all wrong. Now show them what you'll do next. I smiled, choosing to look forward instead of back. The 48 hours that followed graduation and our IPO were a blur of media interviews, investor calls, and employee celebrations. I barely slept, running on adrenaline and the thrill of watching 5 years of work validated in the public markets. By the closing bell on our second day of trading, Secure Connect stock had leveled at $71 a share, giving us a market cap of $1.60 billion. My personal stake, just under 20% after dilution, was, on paper, worth over $300 million. Lockup rules meant I couldn't sell for 6 months, but that didn't matter. The numbers felt abstract. What felt real was the responsibility. 150 employees, thousands of shareholders, and millions of users now depended on me. That evening, I finally returned to my apartment, showered, and changed for dinner with my mom and brothers. My father, true to his word, had caught an early flight home, unable or unwilling to process this new reality of his daughter's success. As I dressed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, but also changed, as though the past 2 days had etched the weight of leadership into my features. My phone hung. Elena again, mentor, friend, the first to believe in me. How are you holding up? She asked. Honestly, I'm not sure, I admitted. It doesn't feel real yet. It never does at first, she laughed knowingly. But the responsibility feels real immediately, doesn't it? Exactly. Then her voice softened. And your father? How did that go? The timing with graduation and the IPO, it was perfect. I exhaled. As well as it could. He congratulated me, but only because he couldn't deny it. That's different from acceptance. Some people can't adapt when their story about you is shattered, she said gently. His story was that you'd fail without him. Your success threatens the world he built in his mind. I know, I whispered. I just thought, deep down, he'd want to be wrong. Give him time, she advised. Some people need longer to catch up to reality. Meanwhile, you've got a company to lead. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, overcome by exhaustion and emotion. Proving him wrong had been fuel for so long. Now that I had done it, publicly and undeniably, the triumph felt strangely hollow. The doorbell rang, my mom and brothers, here for dinner. We slipped into a quiet Italian restaurant, far from the financial district. Over plates of pasta, the unspoken finally surfaced. What happened between you and your father? My mother asked softly. When did it all break? I twirled my fork, choosing my words. It was never really whole, Mom. He never saw me with the same potential as Daniel or Thomas. And when I chose my own path, it only proved his point in his mind. He's proud in his own way, she offered carefully. No, I said gently. He's impressed by what he can't dismiss. That's not the same as pride. Daniel cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Dad has been impossible to deal with since the IPO news broke. He spent the entire day on the phone with his advisor, trying to buy shares in your company. I nearly choked on my wine. He what? Apparently, he thinks it's a smart investment now. Daniel smiled at Riley, though he'd never admit that part to me. The irony is almost too perfect, I said, shaking my head. What will you do now? Thomas asked, steering the conversation back to dad. Was the question I had been asking myself since graduation. What kind of relationship could I possibly have with a father who had spent years betting against me? I'm done chasing his approval, I said at last. That chapter is closed. But I won't cut him out of my life out of spite, either. The door is open, on my terms. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You've become so wise, Sophia. Stronger than I ever was. You did your best, Mom, I assured her, returning the squeeze. No, she said firmly. I didn't. I should have stood up for you more. Too often, I let his dismissal of your dreams go unchallenged. We can't change the past, I told her gently. But we can decide how to move forward. The next morning, I brought my family on a tour of Secure Connect headquarters. The employees were still in celebration mode, though the work never stopped. Many paused to congratulate me and introduce themselves to my family. This is incredible, Thomas said as we walked through the engineering department, where dozens of developers worked on our core technology. I had no idea it was this substantial. What did you think I was doing all these years? I asked, genuinely curious. He shrugged. Honestly, Dad made it sound like you were just messing around with computers on some glorified school project. And you believed him without ever asking me? Thomas looked embarrassed. I should have formed my own opinion. I'm sorry, Sophia. That afternoon, after my family left for their flight, Jennifer found me in my office, where I was reviewing our post-IPO strategy. Your father called, she said, getting straight to the point. He asked if you'd consider joining the board of Jack Building Supply. His words, her business expertise would be valuable to our company. I burst out laughing, the absurdity hitting me like a wave. After years of dismissing my business sense, my father suddenly wanted to leverage it for his own gain. What did you tell him? I asked. I said you were in meetings all day but that I'd pass along the message. She raised an eyebrow. So, what should I say when he calls? Again? I considered carefully. My first impulse was to reject him outright, to give him a taste of the rejection he'd so freely given me. But the urge passed, replaced by something more measured. Tell him I'd be open to discussing possible synergies between our companies, I said finally. But make it clear my priority remains Secure Connect, especially during this critical post-IPO period. Jennifer nodded approvingly. Taking the high road. I'd expect nothing less. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. The media frenzy faded, though I was occasionally recognized on the streets of Boston. Our stock price stabilized, our employees returned to routine, and the daily challenges of running a public company became my new normal. My father never called back about the board seat. Instead, he sent a formal email outlining his proposal, copying my brothers and our attorneys. I replied with equal formality, declining the offer but suggesting alternative ways our companies might collaborate. What surprised me most in the aftermath of the IPO was how quickly the achievement itself faded into the background. The validation I had once craved lost its shine faster than I expected. What truly mattered were the relationships built along the way and the impact of our technology on clients who depended on it. 3 months after graduation, I made a decision that surprised many but felt instinctively right. I established the Secure Connect Foundation with $50 million of my personal shares, creating a scholarship fund for young women pursuing careers in cybersecurity and technology. The first scholarship went to a remarkable 19-year-old from rural Georgia. Her father, much like mine, believed technology wasn't a suitable path for his daughter. When I called to share the news, she burst into tears and whispered, "This changes everything. My whole future just opened up." Her words instantly brought me back to my conversation with Elena years earlier, when she invested in Secure Connect on the condition that I would one day support another young woman with a big dream. And here it was. The cycle of opportunity was alive, growing. Bigger than either of us could have imagined. My own relationship with my father remained complicated. We had settled into a quiet standoff, speaking mostly through formal channels about business connections. He never apologized for doubting me, but he stopped predicting my failure. And in the world of Harold Jack, that counted as progress. My mother visited often. She delighted in what I had built and finally admitted her own regrets about not supporting me more when it mattered most. I was so afraid of disrupting the family, she confessed. But I see now that harmony built on inequality isn't harmony at all. Perhaps the biggest shift happened within me. The fire to prove my father wrong, once the fuel for countless late nights and relentless effort, slowly transformed into something healthier, a desire to prove myself right. To show the market the opportunity we saw. To showcase the technology we had built. To highlight the extraordinary team I had assembled. A year after our IPO, I was invited back to MIT to speak to engineering students about entrepreneurship. Standing on the same stage where I once graduated, I looked out at their eager faces and felt an unexpected sense of closure. Success isn't about proving others wrong, I told them. That may feel good for a moment, but true success is proving yourself right, validating your own vision of what's possible. During the Q&A, a young woman raised her hand. Did your father ever admit he was wrong about you? The room went silent, waiting for my answer. No, I said honestly. And I don't need him to. The most valuable lesson I learned while building Secure Connect had nothing to do with technology or business strategy. It was about defining success on my own terms, no longer seeking validation from others. As I walked off stage to warm applause, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my father. Saw your lecture was live streamed. Well said. No apology, no admission. But maybe, in his way, a step toward understanding. I smiled and put my phone away. My validation no longer came from Harold Jack. It came from the hundreds of employees who trusted me with their careers. From the clients who placed their most sensitive data in our hands. From the young women who looked at my journey and saw a roadmap for their own. What did you think of my story? Have you had to navigate complicated family dynamics while chasing your dreams? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this journey inspired you, please like, subscribe, and pass it along to someone who needs to hear that success is possible, even when others doubt you. Thank you for listening. And remember, validation that truly matters is the kind you give yourself.